forces must now be well aware that he can hold out little hope of saving the remains of the Luftwaffe from final and complete destruction.
Today I'm going to be trying out the new Tier 3 Mustang in a realistic battle. With the latest update, the US research tree received this new P-51 that didn't have any letter designation, and this has caused a fair amount of confusion. The name of the aircraft is P-51. That's it. Folks on the forums are wondering which version this is. Is this some Hispano spin-off of the A, B, or the C? None of them had a bubble canopy that the D model had, so how can you tell? It's actually none of them. It's just the P-51 Mustang. It has no letter designation because historically it never did. It came before all the rest. It's important to understand that though the P-51 was designed and produced in America, it was originally a British fighter. The British Air Council Supply Committee wanted to organize fighter production from the United States for the RAF. Britain already had a relationship with North American aviation, as they supplied trainers for the Royal Air Force. When the President of North American, James Kindleberger, went to the RAF's head of production and research and development to sell the B-25 bomber, he was asked if North American would be able to get a license to start a production line for the Curtiss P-40 Tomahawk, which is already being produced at full capacity by the Curtiss-Wright Corporation, was in short supply and happened to be the most desirable American fighter to fit the bill for the British. Fortunately for the Allied powers, Kindleberger was an innovator who had other ideas. He said that he could develop a better aircraft than the P-40 and have it flying in less time than it would take him to put in a Tomahawk production line. And he was right. His new aircraft had the same engine as the P-40, but he was able to go a good deal faster with a few major innovations. North American worked with the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NASA's predecessor, and the University of Washington to develop wings made up of laminar flow airfoils, which performed exceptionally well at high speeds. To further reduce drag, the P-51 was among the first aircraft ever to have its fuselage mathematically lofted from conic sections, making the surface extremely streamlined. The other major improvement was that strange signature air scoop that feeds into the cooling system on the bottom of the aircraft. Such a contraption, when used at high speeds with a liquid-cooled engine, is actually able to offset drag by producing a small amount of thrust using what is known as the Meredith effect. It was poorly understood at the time, but the core concept is actually fairly straightforward. The airflow, which is moving relatively fast compared to the scoop, enters the radiator duct and is compressed a great deal as it slows down. Waste heat from the engine is then exchanged through the radiator into this airflow, adding energy. The air is then accelerated out the exhaust duct, producing a small amount of thrust, increasing the efficiency of the aircraft. These three developments are what made the P-51 the P-51. The North American 73, or Mustang Mk I, was the first production model for the British. This variant was well suited for ground attack and reconnaissance and had the best low altitude performance of any RAF fighter. The Mk I was equipped with 8 machine guns, with 2 50 calibers in the nose cowling and 2 30s and a 50 on each wing. As part of the agreement which allowed North American to export to Britain in the first place, 2 aircraft from the original order were sent to the Army Air Corps for evaluation. However, at the beginning, the Army Air Corps was extremely underfunded for a large-scale war, and rather than looking for a new prototype, it was putting its limited finances towards producing tried-and-true aircraft. To face the Great Depression, the US and Britain both began domestic projects of a grand scale. The British built houses, over 200,000 homes, every year from 1926 to 1939. FDR focused on his New Deal and is known for establishing massive public works like the TVA. Unlike the governments of the present day, the US and British leadership back then knew that money had to come from somewhere. So to fund these ventures, both countries slashed their military budgets in half which made them very slow to respond to the Nazi blitzkrieg. Who would have thought that concealed in the forests and even the blasted schoolhouses of Germany, that the production of perhaps the world's most advanced and powerful army was well underway? Anyway, when the P-51 was finally reviewed in America, the US didn't like the mixed armament and replaced the machine guns with 4 long-barreled 20mm Hispano Mark II cannons. This variant became the United States Army Air Force P-51 with no letter designation. This is the mysterious Tier 3 American fighter in War Thunder. When the US started giving this new version of the aircraft to Britain under the Lend-Lease Act, they became known as the RAF's Mustang Mk I. This is the Tier 3 British premium fighter. So it is a little disappointing to see the British version is a better fighter in game, when historically they are literally exactly the same. The exact same armament, engine, and airframe. However, from a different perspective, the US lineup didn't have this fighter, and now it does. Whatever disagreements you may have with its modeling, you have to look on the bright side and acknowledge that. It's another hard-hitting plane at rank 3 that's pretty maneuverable in arcade, and doesn't cost real money like the Mark I-A. It comes in at a battle rating of 3.0 in arcade, which seems a little low given its armament. But if you're like me, and don't mind taking a little advantage, that's a very good thing. You won't tend to shoot down airplanes by doing bits of damage to a control surface or lighting a fuel tank on fire. If you get hits on someone, you'll be blowing them to pieces. They will fall apart in front of you. There are fundamental and cinematic differences that become extremely gratifying with this. If you're comparing the Tier 3 tech trees to those of, say, Germany or Britain, the US could use the help. And now, people don't have to wait until Tier 4 to buy a Mustang. So, thank you, Gaijin. Shifting our attention to the replay, you can see I've been struggling pretty hard against these Ruskies and their LA-5s. Granted, this is only my second time in realistic battle with this plane. It's not too far off from stock, and I haven't discovered where it shines yet. But I am being outperformed handily in every way I can think of. They are outrunning me, out-turning me, and out-climbing me. By a lot. The icing on the cake is this blasted instructor who takes over the controls to prevent stalls, spins, and general maneuverability. A little earlier, I gently started a low G pull-up at 200 miles an hour, and the instructor jumped in and stopped me from applying any more control force at 165 miles an hour, allowing the enemy fighter to fly past unscathed and unconcerned. I don't know if I would have hit him otherwise, but it's annoying. I'm an airplane junkie, and I've read some of those old declassified flight test reports for performance and stability for the P-51B. Yes, different airplane, but similar enough to say that its highest stall speed for level flight was 97 miles an hour. This naturally increases when pulling Gs. But is it seriously going to cut us off at 165? For a flight sim that's as good as War Thunder, that's just a joke. I mean, really, it's not a good joke, but it's a joke. Then the guy has the nerve to shunt my turn when I try to give the other fighter chase. Makes you sick, doesn't it? If I'm going to go into a stall or enter a spin, just let it happen. It'd be an excellent learning experience, and we could be the masters of our own virtual destiny, or the onbringers of our own virtual demise. You can recover from a stall, you can recover from a spin, but the other guy won't recover from cannon fire ripping off his wing if the instructor would let it happen. So, that's probably about enough of the solo pity party that's been going on here. It does make for a wonderful excuse, but it's not all on him. I need to learn how to handle this thing. That's on me. I have a feeling this plane can be really good in the right hands. It rocks an arcade. Its battle rating jumps up to a 3.7 for realistic from a 3.0. And it handles pretty well on sim if you use a joystick. Clearly, somewhere in the middle here, I'm blowing it. But, I don't know. Time will tell. Here I've fully dedicated myself to taking down this LA-5. I've been following this guy for a while, and I'm riding my engine as hard as it will let me. I've done damage to his right aileron, but when I tried to finish the job, he lived long enough to pull away from me. And that's a problem because my gun targeting distance was at 400 meters. I was being very aggressive with my limited ammo, since we were near the friendly airstrip. This being the case, the other P-51 who was on my wing broke off to land and rearm. So now I'm hunting this guy down on my own. Blazing half my ammo away might have been a good idea if he went down and I could immediately get resupplied. That was my first major gamble in this game, and now I'm chasing him wherever he goes because I'm assuming that he is completely out of ammo. If that wasn't the case, I figured he'd be turning with me and enjoying the upper hand like the LA-5s have been doing this entire game. The last thing I wanted was for him to have the opportunity to reload without me being there to strafe him on the runway. Honorable? That's debatable. Is it practical? Very much so. I do not want a fair fight with someone who would easily win in a fair fight. Actually, I don't want a fair fight at all. I'm waiting for him to make a mistake or attempt to land, so I can batter his defenseless Russian airframe. Unfortunately, he's smart enough to pull away a considerable distance in a straight line before any change in direction, so I won't be able to catch up with him by cutting him short in the turn. He knows I can't catch him, and I keep trying, so this bit gets pretty boring. So I'm going to skip ahead to when we're closing in on the enemy airfield, because that's definitely where he's headed. We're pretty much there now. I'm preparing to hit the deck to make myself a harder target for flak, but then he crashes, making the turn to final. If I wasn't closing in, giving him a reason to worry and hustle, would he have crashed? I wouldn't like to think so, but probably. So now, I'm going to head back across the map to land and rearm. At this point I'm a little concerned that my ally is still all the way over there. The enemy has 2 planes left, and a target of opportunity arises. A year or 2, we have enough ammo for that. And he doesn't look like he's going to try to avoid me in any way. He wants to come head on, it's fine. Makes him a lot easier to hit. No problem. This means the only person left on the enemy team now is their B-25. But if you take anything away from the scoreboard, or have been watching the battle messages at all, you can tell this guy has been in gunship mode the entire game. Sure, he's been picking off ground targets, but he has been hunting our planes. He's shot down 3 so far. He is playing very aggressively because he can get away with it. He's in a B-25. The thing is just guns held together by armor. So he's definitely wanting a head-on pass here. I want no part of that. So I wait to get close, I break off to the side, and then go to loop around. I don't break off enough, I loop around too early. He nicks me. Nothing major, nothing to worry about. But this is a really big gamble here, because I don't have much for ammo left. He's a hard target to hit. Well, not to get a hit on, but to cripple. And you see, He lights me on fire. I have nothing left. Now what are you supposed to do? You know? He can catch me. And I have nothing to defend myself with now. My only hope is in my ally. But there's just something funky with that guy. I didn't realize it said he just crashed there, but he did. He's not going to help me out. I don't realize that until I get much closer to the airfield, and the B-25 gets much closer to me. It's definitely in pursuit, definitely closing. See, I'm still frantically messaging them that I need some help. The B-25 is such a fun plane and realistic, because you can take out ground units and get your points there, but it is just covered, prickling with 50 caliber machine guns to defend itself. And it also has 6 offensive 50 cals on the front side as an armament. So you can go around and shoot down 2, 4, whatever planes per match, and you never have to go to the airfield and resupply. It's a vicious thing. I have a blast flying a tier 2 B-25 in realistic games. It's just so entirely unfair. It's a riot. I'm discovering though that the receiving end is kinda crummy. About at this point, I'm realizing, my teammate's been in spectator mode. He's gone. I don't know if he's quit the game. I'm not pleased with it. What I thought happened was that he returned to base, landed, and then J'd out, so that he wouldn't have to pay for repairs or anything on his plane, and then he can just ditch his team and move on with his life. That's what the clever scumbags do. Now, when I watched the replay from his perspective, did a perfect landing, rearmed, did a perfect takeoff, didn't crash on takeoff, it wasn't amateur hour, and then he just jumped out of the plane once it was in the air. That doesn't make much sense at all to me. If he's just going to ditch the game, you might as well just do it on the ground. But I don't know his life, her life, whoever's life, the other player's life. Something could have come up, they had to urgently leave, and that does happen. And it just kind of stinks, So my water is ticking down now, the time until the engine's going to quit because of overheating. I have the throttle cut back. I know I'm hosed. My fate's sealed. I'm just coming to accept it right now. That's all there is to it, is accepting your fate, letting him have the kill, letting him get some experience, all on top of his other 3 air kills and however many ground units he has. And deal with it, Any takeaways here? Yeah, you can look back. I made a bunch of mistakes this game. I have a decent score. I killed 2 planes, but I went wrong in a lot of places.
When it comes to handling, I'm thinking more and more that my expectations were just too high. There are those you can outmaneuver, but don't count on it until you find out who they are for yourself. In general, once you become aware of your limitations, you start finding yourself in cruddy situations much less frequently. These aircraft were used for reconnaissance and attacking soft targets on the ground. They were especially known for train busting, not for shooting down enemy aircraft. So it's hard to say how you should treat it in a dogfight. As a rule of thumb for most American fighters, when you use it as an energy fighter, things will start looking up. You need speed to maneuver, and you lose energy quickly in a turning fight. So avoid lingering at low altitude between the boom and the zoom. Make your pass and get up and out. Also, it might be good to avoid doing anything I did in this replay. That infamous lack of high altitude performance is definitely modeled, but if you think you should be going below 5,000 feet the whole game just because it doesn't have a Merlin engine, you need to realize the term low altitude is pretty relative. That's Cessna altitude. For example, before stopping my initial climb with this Mustang, I will go up to at least 8,000 or 9,000 feet. And if I get in a P-51D, I will go up to 12,000 or 13,000 before I even stop wepping. That's the difference. An Allison engine doesn't mean altitude isn't your friend anymore, but it does have its implications. You will want to use war emergency power with a lot more discretion, because your engine will overheat relatively fast, so keep that in mind. And it may go without saying, but as is the case with pretty much any airplane in War Thunder, you'll get the most out of it if you're working together with others, and good communication can make you extremely dangerous in any aircraft. Failing that, flying several thousand feet above your teammates, ready to give them support, or pretending to do that, selfishly using them as bait, is always seen as a welcome gesture. So, thanks for watching. There was quite a bit of fail-whacking gameplay, but what I really hope you enjoyed was taking a look at the early development of the P-51 Mustang. I hope you found it interesting, and maybe even learned a thing or two, because that was the intended focus here. The P-51D is just so legendary and definitive that it's become the icon for that name, the entire line. And you really don't hear a whole lot about the development or the early variants. And that's really a shame, because it's a cool story, you know? I think it is. I just try to picture Kindleberger telling this bigwig from the RAF not to even bother with the P-40. Oh, you know, we haven't started designing anything yet, but I'm sure we can do better. You know, that's just great. For those of you who were wondering if I was exaggerating about Arcade or might not be convinced it's worth your time, here's the promised clip. It gets pretty twisted. How long does this sort of thing last? Well, you have 500 cannon rounds, and with 20 points in the reload skill and an elite crew, the reload time is only 18 seconds. So you get the idea. It does club seals, but that's a battle rating of 3.0 right there. That's great. Now, if you're the sort of person who laughs hysterically when kicking puppies, and you want every plane in your lineup to do that at Tier 3, you should play Germany. But, be warned, you would then become subject to some incredibly accurate stereotypes. Because everyone who wants to kick puppies plays Germany. For instance, that guy in this Walker Wolf was trying really hard to do so. If you actually want to feel halfway patriotic and have some skill involved with your success, play America. The struggle bus will stop by from time to time, but you will have plenty of opportunities to laugh at people in superior or overpowered airplanes, failing miserably because they think they're invincible. So again, thanks for watching, and you guys have a good day. God bless.